Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, appreciate your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. Let's go. So I wanted to do a little bit of a dive into the Fever roster, what that looks like. Now that we've gotten through the bulk of the free agency offseason, we've seen a lot of changes. I don't think it's solidified. I mean, we've got a couple of players that are on training camp. I keep wanting to say training camp contracts. So they may not be with the team. I believe it's Brown and Brianna Turner at this point. So there may still be some changes. Maybe they're trying to figure out a way that they can get Christy Wallace off of the books. So there still could be some potential changes, but I think it's there's been enough of them and it's settled down. We've got a 12-player roster now. We're gonna talk about the Fever a little bit here. So we've got Kelsey Mitchell, Christy Wallace, Natasha Howard, Aaliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Damiris Dantas, Jaylen Brown, Brianna Turner, Caitlin Clark, Dewanna Bonner, and Sydney Colson. So what does the starting lineup look like? What does the rotation look like? How are they going to play? What sort of style are they going to play? So my belief, at least to start, and again, who knows with camp and so forth, but I think there is close to a consensus on this. Probable starting lineup is going to be Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark in the backcourt, Natasha Howard, Dewanna Bonner, and Aaliyah Boston are the front court players. And then I think the core bench, what I believe will be the first three off the bench, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Damiris Dantas, and then depending on whether they feel there needs to be a size matchup a little more, you might see, I don't know, if she's still on the team, you might see Brianna Turner, you might see Jaylen Brown as well. I don't know. I'm not sold on anyone past Cunningham, Hull, and Dantas at this point in terms of major minutes. So I can see how people, from a basketball perspective, I kind of get the Turner signing because I can see how people might think they need a big, but I'm not sure that they do, and I will get into that as well. Now, some of the things that are really interesting is depth versus stars. There's good and bad to both in terms of how a team is made up. And I've even seen it, and you may have seen it in other teams. I've even seen it in coaching a youth sport where you've got some of those teams where they might only have two or three really good players, but they're so much further than the rest of the team that everything is about those couple of players. And other teams where there is no real standout. I know people are going to say, well, Clark is a standout, and I get that. But when we look at how they put together the rest of the team, in terms of the rotation, the players I named, right, with that starting five, Mitchell, Clark, Howard, Bonner, Boston, as a team, as a group of players, there's not a whole much of a gap then when you add in Sophie Cunningham, who could start, depending on how she's playing and how things are going. Lexi Hull, who could start. Damiris Dantas, who could start. And by the way, she's been playing fantastic overseas. One thing I will say is I think a lot of people slept on her, and me too, at the beginning, because I made the mistake of judging her initially based on how she was playing, and it wasn't fair to me to not say, hey, well, you know what? She's rusty. She just came off injury. She's not in shape, and you saw her get better and better as the season went along, and she looks to be in great shape now and is playing fantastic ball overseas. And I've got some stuff from her, some video that I will show and break down a little bit as well. Some of the stuff in her game that I absolutely love and I think should be. I won't say will be because, hey, I don't know what Steffi White's thinking, but she should be a part of the rotation and getting minutes. So it's going to be interesting, I think, in that depth aspect. What I would say is bad about it is it can be difficult as a coach to keep your players happy. It's going to be interesting to see if Stephanie White can make that happen, if she can keep these players happy and keep them thinking about the team and a ring and maybe sacrificing personal goals in order to get there, right? Because what happens if you get into rotation and you have at times where Kelsey Mitchell's playing 20 minutes in a game, or Bonner, or Howard, or, all of a sudden, Lexi Hull, who was absolutely fantastic when she got into the starting lineup and was second in the league in three-point percentage. What happens when she's buried at the bottom of the bench in the 8, 9, or 10 spot and she's getting 10 minutes a game? Or Sophie Cunningham, who came from Phoenix playing, I think she played about 27 minutes a game last year, but has been 30 and above before that. What happens if she's playing 10 or 15? What happens if that happens with Bonner? What if Sophie Cunningham is lighting it up, or Lexi Hull is lighting it up, or Dantas is, and Howard or Bonner are now only playing, getting a stretch of games where they're just not playing a lot? How does Stephanie White handle that? How does she keep that team together, focused on the goal that is the goal, right? The main thing, as they're saying now, which is a title. That takes a special kind of coach. And the one I always think in terms of basketball that was able to do that was Phil Jackson, who did it both in Chicago with Jordan and then in LA with Kobe and the insecure sidekick, Shaquille O'Neal. But so that's going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see if White can adapt and make adjustments like that, despite it maybe causing problems, possibly, despite it may being unpopular. How popular is Stephanie White going to be if we find out that the most effective Fever team is a smallerish, yes, I made that up. It's a smaller-ish lineup, and say Aaliyah Boston all of a sudden is only playing 20 minutes a game because she doesn't fit into that up-tempo type of style that is best for what the Fever should do. And from what I'm seeing, that is what the Fever will be best at. Now, when I say a team should be running and they should be up-tempo, no, that doesn't mean every single possession it's going to happen. But when you look at the way this team has been put together, that's what they've been put together to do, right? Kelsey Mitchell, athletic, quick, explosive, can run the court, can shoot the three, can get to the basket. Caitlin Clark, we obviously know, can do that as well, not to mention throwing in her passing. We've seen many, many times, speaking of, running, that they are scoring layups, the Fever, on other teams' made baskets. Other teams make a basket, it gets in, and Caitlin Clark finds a Kelsey Mitchell or Lexi Hull running the court and getting an easy bucket. That's the type of explosiveness that the Indiana Fever have. And they need players who are able to do that. Kelsey Mitchell is a player who can do that. Natasha Howard can do that. Dewanna Bonner can do that. Cunningham can do that. Hull can do that. I think Dantas actually moves in terms of up and down the court. I think Damaris Dantas runs better than Aaliyah Boston. It's just not Aaliyah Boston's game. It's not her game, and it's not a knock on Aaliyah Boston at all. By the way, I think Sydney Colson can do that as well. I think Jaylen Brown can do that. I think Brianna Turner can do that. You really, the one player that stands out to me as not being an up-tempo player is Aaliyah Boston. So it's going to be interesting for me to see how the offense is constructed, how they run, how much they run, and if it is as effective as everyone thinks it's going to be, what does that mean for Aaliyah Boston? One of the great things about this team too that I look at kind of goes with what I just mentioned. I love the versatility and flexibility of, say, the front 8 players who can play multiple positions, players who are fast, players who are long, right? If you look at the way a number of the players on this team are built, Natasha Howard, Dewanna Bonner, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, they all play taller than they are. And it's kind of wild. They're not a tall team. I believe Aaliyah Boston's the tallest player at 6'5". And I think, I can't think of which is, I think they might have one player who's 6'4", and then they're like 6'3" and below. But they are long, so they play taller. But they're also all more athletic than a lot of what you typically get in the WNBA. And I think this is a team that, for me, if they do play that up-tempo, if they do play that and even defensively in your face, a little bit more of pressure than maybe they were playing in the past. I think this is a team that is better suited to play smallerish and run other teams into the ground, run these big, slow players into the ground, make them run 94 feet for 40 minutes. Or as you go way back to the team my dad talked about, the Arkansas Razorback team in the 80s with Nolan Richardson, when the whole idea was it was going to be 40 minutes of hell for the other team. And that's something I think that Indiana Fever can do to other teams. And so you might have a more effective lineup when you've got, say, Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, Natasha Howard, Dewanna Bonner, and Sophie Cunningham, and throwing Lexi Hull into that, and possibly Jaylen Brown into that mix as well, where you don't really have a true center. But you still have players who can defend. We know Howard's a good defender. Bonner's a good defender. Hull's a good defender. I think Cunningham's a better defender than a lot of people seem to think. And when you have that and you've got these long athletic players and you can pressure the ball, I think what they bring to the table, especially their ability to run offensively, I think that negates any size advantage another team might have. In addition, they are going to be able to, I think they're going to be able to, if they show that they're a running team, and they're going to be a better running team than last year by far. Not only have the players who were there played with Caitlin Clark, and the other players have seen it, and Bonner played with her in the All-Star game, right? You have players that, I almost lost my train of thought. You have players that finish well, which the Fever didn't really have last year, right? Natasha Howard can finish at the rim. Dewanna Bonner can finish at the rim. By the way, I think Dantas can finish at the rim. Cunningham can finish at the rim. Lexi Hull needs to get a little better. She can. She's got the athleticism. I see how she shoots. And so it's frustrating to see her when she does miss them, because I think she's actually should be better than what her percentage shows when she does get around the rim. So going back to Boston, and this is why please don't freak out and make this like I'm hating on Boston or being critical, because it's about the fit. And when I look at this lineup and I talk about these things that I'm saying, I wonder, is Aaliyah Boston sort of the odd player out for what we think is going to be the best Fever style, which is more up-tempo? Can she move with the team? Can she keep up with the team in a high-tempo game? She does a lot of great things. She's an all-star 2 years in a row, okay? This isn't a knock on Boston. It's a fit. It's just like, I'll use an example that I've used before for me, and you all know I'm a huge Allen Iverson fan. Another similar type of player at the time who was an all-star and really good was Stephon Marbury. But you wouldn't want those two playing maybe in an all-star game. It would be fun. But in a regular season, I don't think you'd want those two to be your two guards at the same time, right? They're very, very similar, and you need to bring something else to the table, and it was just a matter of fit. And I wonder if Boston is going to be able to fit, and it's not her fault. I think even when she's in shape, it's not necessarily the style that fits her the best. So it's just going to be interesting to see with the rotations if Stephanie White is truly about, we want to win a title. Will she at times limit Boston's minutes if the team is performing better at up-tempo when she's not in the game, right? So I think that's going to be one of the things that's going to be interesting, because Boston is clearly one of the better centers in the game, but I'm not sure if her style is Fever style. I hope it is. I like Aaliyah. I mean, anyone who's watched enough of my videos know I like Aaliyah Boston, both how she conducts herself off the court and her play. She's a nice post player. One of the things I was going to say, and I'll mention it here when we look at some stats. This is a team that was third in the league by 1.4 points, less than 1.5 points last year. And we know that got jacked up post All-Star break, which was less than half the season. This is a team that should lead the league in scoring. And I'm going to say 90 points plus. I'd love to say 100. I think they can hit 100 multiple times for sure, but doing it consistently enough over 44 games to make it an average, that might be tough. I mean, to be fair, it's only a 40-minute game, not 48 like the NBA. But I definitely think they can be 90 plus and lead the league. right? And one of the things I wanted to mention is here is you see they're fourth in rebounds. Fourth in rebounds. And again, only 1.5 behind the top team. And part of that, and I think if they play the up-tempo, and they'll be a better up-tempo team this year than last year, and if they do that, you'll see even if they go with their smaller-ish lineups, rebounding won't necessarily be a detrimental thing for them because other teams, and you saw a lot of this last year, it's one of the reasons Caitlin Clark gets a good number of rebounds is because other teams figure, unless they're already in the paint and it's a crowd of 3 or 4 people and they're tapping at the ball on normal shots, on threes, on jumpers and stuff, other teams, they started like, when we shoot, forget the offensive rebound if we miss. Let's get back because even when we make a bucket, the Fever with Clark have the capability of getting a layup behind us. So we're going to concede the defensive rebound, right? So when you've got teams doing that against the Fever, that size thing isn't as big a deal as it might otherwise be. So that's another thing to the Fever advantage. And look, even this, the Fever were 5th in the league in blocks, less than 1 behind the league leader. So, I'm seeing a whole lot of stuff about Brianna Turner being this amazing shot blocker and how important that is. She's a rim protector. She averaged 1.2 blocks a game for her entire career. The Fever are one of the best teams in the league in that stat already, so I'm not sure that that's necessary. We know they can shoot. They led the league. Yeah, they led the league in field goal percentage. They were 5th in three-pointers made. They were 3rd in three-point percentage. So this is an offense that was already really good last year, and then I look at this roster, and I think they're so much better than they were last year, so that's going to be really interesting. All right, here we go. We're going to break down a little Dantas video for you. This is from overseas. You can see, if you remember from when she came in, she's moving much better. She's also getting to do some things that she didn't get to show with the Fever. She just got better and better as the season went along. Like I said earlier in the video, she obviously had time off. She had been rusty. She was coming off injury, and now she's ready to go. She is ready to go. So let's take a look at some of this. So you're going to see her. She comes off a high screen three-point line, hands it off, sets a pick, rolls very well to the basket, and I absolutely love that shot. That is something we didn't really see from her. That is something Aaliyah Boston doesn't give, that Dantas gives. Again, so you're seeing a couple of things. The three-point threat Dantas is that Boston is not, and you're seeing the type of shot like that Boston doesn't have in her repertoire. Now, Boston has great feet under the post. She's a really good post player. So please don't confuse. Again, I'll say it again. I am an Aaliyah Boston fan. I'm just talking about what fits in with the Fever and giving you some things that Dantas is showing that leads me to believe if they play the way I think they will and should play, she can be a big part of that success. So we got another one, I think, where she's actually going to take the three, right? Gets the ball handoff. Nice, sweet release. We all know she can shoot the three, which, again, Boston doesn't give us. Now we're going to go back to basket. She's going to work in the post, and that, again, that type of shot, that is a great shot. I'm going to go over that again. I don't know if people realize that's not the easiest shot in the world. I will say that's one thing that I really do like about Breanna Stewart's game is she has this type of shot. Very high release as well, something you don't see a lot in the women's game. Either that ability to get that high release on shots that are 10, 15 feet away as opposed to under the basket, being able to release off 1 foot like that back. That is an unblockable shot, okay? You put Dantas in the right position and she can get that shot off. It's an unblockable shot. It's like giving Caitlin Clark just a little bit of time at the three-point line, a little bit of space. She has a quick release. She's going to get off shots that other players do not because they don't have the same high quick release. So I think we got two more maybe coming that are pretty nice, if I have this correctly. Oh, 3. Now fast break, right? She's out in front on the fast break, catch, and finishes. We know how important that is. And then again now, just the simple catch and shoot on the 3. So you're seeing a whole bunch of variety to her game. Now we're going to see her go to the basket. She's isolated on that side, and we're going to look at that one more time for a couple of reasons. But you saw her go to the basket. So she's driving from outside the three-point lane to the basket. You see her moving very well. And then that shot, that was almost on the run. I don't know if people appreciate how, if you've played, you know. I don't think a lot of us appreciate how difficult that shot was to go to the basket, plant, and then fade toward the sideline like that and release that. That is an extremely difficult shot to hit that we're going to see right here, because she's going to the bucket, and then there's the step back, gets herself squared in one motion, and then we have one final play where we see more of a traditional post-up game. Gets her back, gets in there, nice drop step finish, and the foul. So as you can see, Dantas brings a lot to the game. We didn't get to see all of this with the Fever as she played herself into shape and shook off the rust and got better and better as the season went along and tried to fit herself into the team. Don't forget, we talked about all those things that the Fever were doing early on with dropping passes and missing layouts because they're learning how to play with Caitlin Clark. Dantas had to do that halfway through the season and come into players who had already been learning with Caitlin Clark and then do what she did as the season wore on, which was absolutely fantastic. So I am excited about what Dantas can bring to the table, and I emphasize that a little more in this because I think it's kind of going under the radar because of the signings with Bonner and Howard and Cunningham and so forth, and re-signing Kelsey Mitchell, of course, that no one's talking about Damiris Dantas. So this is my shout out to Dantas. But let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. What do you think the starting lineup looks like? Do you agree that they could go smaller at times and it be effective without having a true center in there? With the makeup of this roster and the way the game is in the WNBA, I'm perfectly fine without this team having a true center. I don't think they need one. Who do you think is going to get most of the minutes? Do you think there's going to be that flexibility that Stephanie White has that in her to say, ride the hot hand in certain situations where you might have a week where they play 2 or 3 games and Cunningham's getting 30 minutes a game and Bonner's getting, 15 or 20 and a game where Dantas gets 30, 35 minutes and Boston gets 15. Do you think that you're going to see that type of flexibility from Stephanie White? And if not, is that good or bad? But let me know in the comments if you're enjoying the content. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does mean a lot. It helps out tremendously. I do appreciate it. And for those who stayed for this whole thing, thank you. It was nice to do a more in-depth, pure sports basketball video. We haven't gotten to do a lot of them in the off season, but here you go. Let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to all of you later.